Great, it's Friday the 25th of February and we're on quest 34. Can you believe it? These quests seem to come around so quick, but we're actually on a really good quest here. We're going through 11 Keystone churches. Now, for those who don't know what Keystone churches are, there's a set of scholars and researchers back in the 1500s that made a listing of certain areas where they believe the Grail would have travelled when it travelled through England. Now, yes, there's many other scholars that have done that as well, but that's what we mean by Keystone churches. So these places are built on where they believe the Grail would have been. Now, we think that the Grail was here between 368 AD and 450 AD. Clearly this church wasn't here then, but that's why the church was built here. Like most churches, we know they're built on sacred grounds. So we're at St Edith's church in a place called Church Pulverbatch, or Pulverbatch for short, about 8 miles due west of Shrewsbury. So we're not far off the Welsh borders really, so we're not far off the land of the Isles, which is quite interesting. But it's got some really good symbology in here. And when I think about it, I mean, it's certainly connected to, it's got medieval origins. It was rebuilt in 1853 if we look at more current times. The West Tower in 1773, but I want you to really look at this plaque here because that's really interesting. The bell tower was restored 16th of November 51 in memory of George Ninian and Quenelda Warrington, lost at sea off western Scotland in September 45 by their son Alistair, relatives and friends. So that's lovely. So back then this memorial was done and is restored in 1951 by their son. So that's just interesting, and it's such an unusual surname, Ninian. That's worth researching and looking at if you get the opportunity. Okay, so we've got a modern style type of font, which doesn't excite me a great deal really, but it's here. That's the original stonework, which is lovely from when it was built, which is good. I just want you to just pan around and to see how beautiful the main part of the church is when we look down there. And we're going to go around there in a moment, but look how beautiful that looks. Painstakingly looked after by the local community, which is lovely to see. We've also got here, on these stalls, on the pews, see that we've got the free ones, free and free. So there's certain ones that were allowed for people that couldn't afford to make a donation. These were where they would sit if they were free ones. So, and I just love seeing that. It's nice that they're still there, really. Because, you know, rightly or wrongly, you're always expected to give a donation when you come to church. So, there we go. Anyway, to move around this way, it's quite interesting to show you through here. Obviously for me, I've got to duck a little bit as I go through. A bit taller than that. And what's interesting on the windows is they've all got almost the Star of David, you see. They've got the little, but it's not really the Star of David where it's here is St Edith's. This is more representative of alchemy and alchemical balances of nature. So it's really, really interesting and important to think of that particular symbol more as alchemical processes. And I've written about in so many of my books about alchemical processes and how it works. And we've got the triskelion linked in there. We've got the 6 points, you know, which, you know, interestingly enough, and then inside with another 6 going into the central feed. So it's quite an interesting symbology, as it were. Yeah, we just travel around this way. So you certainly get a feel for how the place is. Lovely old pews. I love the fact they've still got all their little doors on, which is quite nice. And that brings me to here, and I want you to see it from the other side. So I'll let my learner's friend just go past and then pan back round. So if you just go past me for a moment, I just want to show you this. Now this is what we call, in some aspects, the third column. Yeah, so this is the third column. And it's in a lot of religious buildings, in a lot of points of research, there's a lot of reference made to the third column. And that goes back right to the Roman days, when even Caesar himself was making reference to the third column. And again, if you get time to research it, it's certainly worthwhile. If we look up here at this little altar here, and look at this, isn't that amazing? You've got the three, what are they, Janice?
Ears of corn.
Ears of corn, absolutely. So we've got the 3 ears of corn. Now they are so important in everything you do in life as balance. And I love the way they put it in. Okay, they put it in with like a cross-style setting, but it's a really interesting design that they've done there. Lovely symbology. If we just pan up, I don't know how much you can pan up, but if we pan up to the top there, there's an interesting point up there, which I've got some good pictures of. I'm sure Janice has as well. And we've got the Father, representation of the Father, Son, and the Holy Ghost. We've got the 5 hands in there. It looks like corn coming out, but flowers of lilies as well. But there's a lot of symbology in there as well. And we've got the red and yellow, the sun going around in the centre. Really interesting piece of artwork. Beautiful piece of artwork as we travel down to the beautiful, vibrant pinks and purples and blues and greens, which is good. And then we've got the usual, obviously we've got pictures up there already, but we've got the Gilpin family, which are quite interesting. They are actually in my line as well. An indirect line, admittedly, but I do remember on my ancestry tree seeing the Gilpins on there, so that's quite interesting. And I love the symbology up here on the Exodus part. So you can see there, we've got the inverted triangle. Beautiful piece of artwork there. So there's a lot of symbology. And before we go, I just want to show you this amazing thing here. And that is a modern window design, but look at that wonderful pyramid going to be placed in there. There's a lot more symbology in this little tame church than meets the eye at first glance. If only one knows what to look for, I guess. But yeah, very interesting to see it. Now, Church Pulverbatch was only like 344 people put in the population in the 2001 census. And I think it's pretty much stayed around the same way because it's built into the hillside. And it's just so, and this church is so hidden away. So what a wonderful church to see in such a place. So this is Church Pulverbatch, over in Pulverbatch itself, about 8 miles due west of Shrewsbury. Great church to see.